Live from a NASCAR bunker in Kyle's parents' basement, it's Turn the Radio Off with Mike Parsons and Kyle Bauer.
Turn it off, turn it off, turn the radio off. Turn it off, turn it off, turn the radio off. For once in your life.
Become a fan at Facebook.com/TTRO Show. Follow along on Twitter.com/TTRO Show. Or just listen right now. It's Turn the Radio Off.
All right, so we've all survived the flood this morning.
Well, I thankfully was not a part of any of it.
No,
thankfully.
Why does your workday start later?
Well, no.
Or were you just on the side of town that just happened to miss it?
Thankfully, I was on the side of town that missed it this time, whereas opposed to the one 2 years ago,
right?
I was very much. Yeah. I was actually at ground zero 2 years ago.
Yeah, didn't you have to the one? What was it? August 12th, 2014, where
11th.
Was it? Okay,
it was 11th. I will not forget that day.
I think people in Metro Detroit know that as the flood. I don't know if there is a name for it, but that is the no pun intended watershed moment in our lives where we realized that Detroit infrastructure is garbage, and it hasn't changed since.
And natural disasters can happen here too. We've actually had a couple smaller floods happen here since, which is weird because it's like we had maybe a handful of small floods in 90 years and one major flood like 93 or 4 years ago before.
Yeah.
And since we've had a couple like torrential rains where it's almost like our infrastructure got exposed, and since we've had a couple,
right, it seems like
last night included.
It seems like, and one happened a few weeks ago on the Southfield Freeway.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
where what happens is a pump shorts out, or there's a power outage, and there's no backup power. These pumps that are supposed to keep the freeways from flooding, they're just hooked up to a grid. They're just plugged into an outlet via a very long extension cord. And if the power goes out, or something gets wet, or somebody farts, or a newspaper gets stuck in a grate, the Southfield 94, anything that's under that has an underpass will get flooded.
But we need more bills banning bans on plastic grocery bags, because that's the legislation that counts.
Is that a thing? I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, well, because you remember my conspiracy theory on Kroger and plastic bags, right?
Refresh my memory.
Okay, that Kroger purposely pushes plastic bags on you because they're cheaper, and because I think the chemical companies that make those plastic bags, I believe, have a lobbyist out there pushing these plastic bags.
Makes sense.
Because you'll get like one can of beans and they'll give you 7 plastic bags for that one can of beans.
I do have to say...
And if you ask for paper, they roll their eyes and then they tell you that they're all out, even though you can see like 12 of them sticking out from under the counter.
I do have to say, Kyle, as a former professional in the industry, it was my first job. I was a bagger for Kroger, and maybe this is part of the conspiracy. It's much easier to bag using paper. I'm sorry, much easier to bag using plastic than paper.
But maybe that's much more efficient, though.
Maybe that's part of the conspiracy. Maybe Big Grocery Bag has decided to make it inconvenient to use paper, thus getting the courtesy clerk, that's what it's called. You weren't a bagger, you were a courtesy clerk. The courtesy clerk lobby on their side. And their union, so that's a big voter block in your back pocket.
Interesting angle, but I was going to say I never understood that either, though, because it's so much more efficient to use paper bags. Like today I went grocery shopping. I forgot to ask for paper. It was my fault this time.
Right.
And, of course, I could always bring reusable bags, and I never remember to do that.
Plastic's the default.
And what happened was I forgot to ask for paper, and all of a sudden I looked down. The girl had about 14 plastic bags splayed all over. And
well, that's because they're hard to separate.
For about 13 items,
yeah,
she had about 14 plastic bags. And I know that had I requested paper, there would have been 2 bags max.
Right.
So I'm saying, how is it easier to bag with plastic or more efficient?
Because
I
the plastic,
understand. It looks more difficult to bag with plastic because you have more stuff in front of you then.
Right, but the plastic opens right up. It's got its own carrier. The paper, you got to unfold it. You got to open it up. You got to build the walls.
Well,
in paper, you just throw it all in. Make sure you separate the food from the chemicals. Milk,
the meat.
Yeah, the meat, bread, and eggs on top. Bada boom, bada bing.
Well, digressing though, back to what we were saying.
Right,
though,
since that
infrastructure
yes.
is sorely need a bill to help rebuild our infrastructure. Yet it continues to be neglected, and we see another flood today. And
right.
It seems like this is starting to happen a lot more frequently when it used to never happen before.
Right. And yeah, I was trying to get from Lincoln Park to downtown Detroit, the Fisher Building. 75 was closed because some jackass in a tractor trailer couldn't keep control of his vehicle, and he tipped over.
And that's his fault.
Yes, it is. Did you ever get like angry at people who are in car accidents?
Yes,
like
so angry.
How dare this person inconvenience me?
I was coming back from
Learn how to drive, jackass.
I was coming back from a very exhausting and unsatisfying trip up north this past weekend, from which I vented many ugly details of to you before the show.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and so I'm just cranky and exhausted. I had already called into work on Monday. I'm like, screw this. I'm going to sleep 15 hours on Monday.
Yeah.
So it was anything but refreshing, as a trip up north usually is. And I'm driving home in Podunk, northern Michigan on 75, and all of a sudden it just comes to a complete halt. I look on my little Google Maps app, and it's saying that there's like a hour delay. And I'm thinking, whoever the jackass is that started this car accident, I hope they broke their legs. I'm not saying that I hope they're dead.
Right.
But I hope they broke their legs and they have a long, painful recovery.
Well,
because I want to get home. I'm exhausted. I'm cranky. I'm bitter. I'm pissed. And now my long commute that already would have been 4 or 5 hours is going to be 5 or 6 because of your dumbass was probably texting while driving.
I go through the same range of emotions.
Probably playing Pokemon Go while driving.
Yeah. Which,
look, a Vulpix.
Look, if you're going to play Pokemon Go while driving, have one person driving and the other one catching the Pokemon. But what was I going to say? Oh, yes, I go through the same range of emotions every time I get into a traffic jam. First, it's like, oh, okay, well, this shouldn't last long. And then you're waiting, and you're like, you know what? I'm very curious to see what happened. Like what happened. I want to see this traffic jam through so that I can see what happened. And then you're like, you feel like you're trapped in a box, and you get angry, and you feel kind of guilty because you're mad at the person who got into a car accident, but they might be dead, so you can't be that angry at them. And then you get to the front of the accident, and you see everyone involved outside the car walking around, and they're fine. And then you just unleash your anger. Because they're not dead, so you can be as angry as you want with them without feeling guilty.
Yeah, and by the time I got out there, all but one car was cleared.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the extent of this was.
That's the worst. You get to the end, and it's cleared, and you don't get to see what happened.
So I'm imagining that, this was a stretch of 75 that was only 2 lanes, so I imagine that it was just like a small fender bender. But because it's only a 2-lane stretch of 75, that's enough to just jack it up.
And since we're venting, Kyle, Southwest Detroit is just a useless stretch of road for a detour. I mean, if you want the culture and the food, yeah, it's great. But number one, trying to detour through Southwest Detroit, the roads are flooded, even if it hasn't rained for a week. There's 2 bridges that, why the hell do they even exist? They're always closed. And it would have been faster, Kyle, if I ditched the Caravan. I'm sorry, it's the Voyager. That's the Plymouth version of the caravan. If I would have ditched the purple Voyager and just kayaked into work. And I'm just sitting there here on Mellon Road in southwest Detroit, screaming at the road, why do you exist? You serve no purpose.
I've rarely been through those stretches of road. I wish I could relate. Well, I mean, I don't wish. I mean, only for the purpose of this segment because
Right, so you know what I'm talking about.
I had a completely unaffected drive into work today, so it was beautiful for me. But
isn't everything coming up Bauer?
Well, 2 years ago,
I know you actually had to get out in the.
I was literally stuck in it.
Yeah.
My car died.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny that it's a eerie coincidence that we had the flood last night.
Yeah,
because yesterday, my car, I was driving that same Impala.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what I drove up north. I was driving the same Impala that suffered water damage and had the air intake flooded out. Everything was shorted out in it, had severe electrical damage. I don't know, had nearly $2,000 worth of work on it to save it. And yesterday, it might have bit the bullet for the last time. I somehow got it up north and back.
Mm-hmm.
And I still drive it kind of as a backup beater car here
point
and
A
there.
to point B.
Yeah. I have my own car. My dad has his own car. We both use it as a backup here and there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, sure enough, I'm driving it on Woodward, and all of a sudden the battery comes on, the battery light comes on, and the thing just suddenly dies.
Yep.
And it's frightening because I'm thinking, like, I'm in the left lane on Woodward.
Right, you can't
like
get over.
going 50 miles an hour.
Right.
Like, I got to suddenly. So I see a Michigan left, and I'm thinking, like, okay, right here, I'm going to put my life in my own hands, and I'm going to try to get off to a side street.
Yeah.
So the car is dying
Yep.
as I'm making a Michigan left across 4 lanes of southbound traffic across Woodward. I'm literally jerking the car.
Right. That's happened to me on the interstate
I am
before.
humping the car
Right.
across
Right.
4 lanes of traffic.
Right, you open the door and you start kicking one leg like it's a giant
Yeah.
skateboard.
And I just barely get it off to the side street, right? So the car dies. I give it a minute, and I'm thinking, well, this is some sort of, I don't know, this is maybe like some sort of fuse issue
Yeah.
or something, maybe some sort of, it's definitely an electrical issue.
Anytime there's an issue with my car, I always imagine it's going to cost me $15,000,
So
whatever it is.
So I decided to restart the car.
Yeah.
I restart the car, suddenly it works again.
And then you get back out on Woodward and it dies.
So I get enough juice. So I go back out there, and then on the way back,
Yep.
I'm in the Michigan left turn lane again, and then it dies again right as traffic is coming.
That's fine. It sounds like you need a new battery.
No, cars are oncoming, and they have to swerve out of the way.
Yeah.
And, Mike, I was a lot closer to dying than I was really very close to dying. I don't know if I've still fully come to terms with it, but cars had to veer out of the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very close because the car just freaking died.
Yeah.
I mean, so some very kind Guido driving an Infiniti.
Pauly D with a heart of gold.
Yes, driving an Infiniti. This man probably makes more in a week than what I make in a year.
There's no nicer way to repay someone for their kindness than call him a gentle ethnic slur.
Yes, he got out of his vehicle. He helped me get it back into the turn lane and out of harm's way, and I was able to restart the car again and somehow get it all the way home to my parents' house.
Wow.
Where I parked it and officially deemed it dead.
Yeah.
And I will never be driving that car again. And I know, Mike, this isn't the battery. This is still residual effects of that flood from 2 years ago. Usually when your car gets water damage, it's terminal.
Right.
And
It's like when you drop your phone in water. Yes, it might work, but it's slowly dying.
it will never be the same again.
It's got
And-
phone aids.
Right, exactly. And I think almost a little bit 2 years and roughly a week.
To the day.
Yeah, so roughly 370 days later, I think my Impala finally bit the bullet from the flood of 2014, and then several other cars yesterday bit the bullet from the flood of 2016.
There's no more butt-clenching, nervous, impending feeling of doom than when you're on a one-way street and you realize that there's a giant puddle in front of you and there's traffic behind you, and you've got no choice but to go through it.
Yeah.
Because you're always watching the news, and you see these idiots who have to get rescued by their car, from their car, and you think, how stupid, it serves them right. And then here you are about to become one of them because you make the wrong turn, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And people handle that the wrong way. People think, and this is just my theory, and maybe a car guy's listening, says this guy's full of shit, but I find that this is the best way to do it. And if you're behind me, you're not going to like it. A lot of times what people will do, they will try to go through it slowly, and that's the worst thing to do. What I do is either I wait until it's clear in front of me, and I just keep a steady speed through it to kind of make a wake.
Yeah.
Or I stay right behind the car in front of me and stay in their wake.
Mike, actually, you're right. And let me tell you what I did wrong when it happened to me. And, oh, my goodness, did I feel like an idiot? Because I had always taken pride in not being one of those people.
Right.
In snowstorms. Because, especially in that old Impala, because my dad
I will drive 15 miles an hour in a snowstorm. And I'll read the Facebook, learn how to drive in the snow. I don't give a shit about what you think. I want to live.
Exactly. And my dad got that Impala in 2000, I think, 8 or 9, and he got it. One of the reasons why he got it was a recession, and it was a used car, and it was affordable. But one of the reasons why he got it was because, that thing could haul ass during the winter.
Right.
It's an old, heavy car, usually a fleet vehicle for cops and taxi cabs and stuff. I mean, and it's so I drove it up to Frankenmuth during a just awful snowstorm we had in 2010, and I will never forget. I drove up there, and cars were just spinning off the road in front of me left and right. I mean, cars, just SUVs,
yeah,
Land Rovers.
You think you're invincible.
Yeah, Land Rovers, Envoys, all sorts of cars, trucks that were supposed to be, four-wheel drive vehicles were spinning. I mean, I'm seeing cars turned over that were flipped.
Yeah.
Just all around me. Just destruction left and right. And I'm just slowly, 20 miles an hour, just making my way right through here.
Right.
Just slow and steady. And that damn car, just unflappable. I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was great. So I'm thinking, like, okay, I'm about to go through this. Because all of a sudden, it went from being no water on the road to just suddenly just
Black
a lake.
ice. Yeah.
Well, no, like, I'm talking now, jumping back to the flood.
Okay, I gotcha.
I was at 14 in Stevenson, and I was thinking about whether I should go off to the expressway or not, because normally at that point I get off onto the expressway to get home. And then all of a sudden it went from no water on the road to just suddenly just a lake. And I see cars in front of me having to go through this, and the car in front of me just barely made it.
Yeah.
So I'm going through it steady and steady, but then suddenly for some reason I panicked.
Okay.
I felt like it was getting too deep. I slowed down to turn off.
Yeah.
And when I slowed down to turn off, that's when the engine flooded.
Boom. Yeah.
Water got up into the wheel well, kicked it, and got flooded the air intake.
Right.
And that's when the engine flooded, and it died right onto the ramp to turn off into this parking lot of this, heating and cooling building, I remember.
Flame Heating and Cooling, I think, is over there. Or maybe it's Family Heating and Cooling.
It wasn't Flame, but I remember they had some weird Sean Hannity mural in their lobby. It was very frightening. And they had children dressed as like the Statue of Liberty and stuff. And,
oh, boy.
Some weird neocons.
They're voting
wet
for
dream.
Trump.
Oh, yeah.
But we got to hit a break. But, Kyle, I'm gonna give you the secret right now. I'm not even going to tease this. I'm going to give you the secret right now to being inflammable in situations like that. Coming to terms with the fact you might die and not giving a shit. Turn the radio off on the internet.
Less rock, more talk. Turn the radio off.
Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com.
Attention! Your gym teacher escaped from charm school. Irons his underwear. Watches hygiene films. He says, anyone chewing bubble tape owes me 50 push-ups. The lunch lady wears a hairnet. Serves mashed potatoes with an ice cream scoop. Puts gravy on everything. She says,
Bubble tape is not part of a well-balanced diet.
bubble tape. It's 6 feet of bubble gum. For you, not them.
So, let me repeat your order here. That'll be 1 double cheeseburger, ching. Large fries and a large soda, ching. 2 kids meals and 2 medium sodas, ching. 1 chicken sandwich, large fries, and a vanilla milkshake. Bada bing. That'll be $62.75. We're a little shy.
Remember when you could feed your whole family fast food for less than $10? Well, at Rally's, you still can. Rally's has it right.
So much fun. It's scary. Become a fan on Facebook at www.ttroshow.com. It's Turn the Radio Off.
Now, that's not to say that I'm depressed. That's not really a call for help or anything. It's just that I have found the best way to stay cool and calm and not get frazzled in situations is to imagine the worst possible outcome and become okay with that outcome. And usually the worst possible icon is that you'll either die or get fired. So, when I'm in a situation like that, the worst that could happen is I will be drowned in my car. And I'm like, okay, if that happens, the worst that happens is you die, and then it's over with. So that's just a little that's just a little hint from this steel trap right here.
That was weird though, because that was the first traumatic weather event I had been in since I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
10 years old. I had been caught in one of the few tornadoes that had actually touched down in the Metro Detroit area.
Really?
Yes. In 1997, I believe it was and I might need to consult the history books on this, but I don't know. It was it was only like an F1 or an F2, but trust me, that's still scary enough. And I remember the car shaking back and forth. We were in the parking lot, I think on 13 and Grossbeck.
Yeah.
At what then was a Total gas station, now a Speedway. But yes, that was frightening. And this was the second time, only the second time I had been stuck in a very severe natural weather event or natural disaster, and it was quite frightening. So yeah, it's kind of surreal, kind of scary. Tried not to be freaked out by it, but I was a little, of course.
Well, I'm glad you're okay, because you're alive now for me to say I told you so.
Told you so about what?
Well, last week I said that I had a theory nobody was watching the Olympics because they showed naked tribal tit at 11:30 on a Saturday night, which isn't primetime viewing, but you'd still think there's a lot of eyeballs on the screen. And they showed an uncensored nipple, a female nipple, and I heard nothing about it, where I think if a lot of people were watching it, well, we all know what happened with Janet Jackson. Granted, it was over 10 years ago and it's a simpler time. And I guess the word has been that the ratings for WDIV have been decent, but NBC as a whole, the ratings are tanking. And I just think that the Olympics, the way, excuse me, the way they do things, it's just outdated. Because Rio's an hour behind us, but back London when that was 5 hours ahead of us, the events would actually happen before you actually saw them on TV, and you can't go into a bubble anymore because it seemed like back in London there was a conscious effort to keep people in a bubble. Like Costas would come on and say, "All right, if you want to watch it tonight, turn your TVs right now." But when the United States won the all-around in gymnastics, the first thing that happened when I logged into Yahoo, and maybe Yahoo felt like they could post the results because nobody uses Yahoo anymore, it said a couple hours before it was going to air on NBC, United States female gymnastics wins gold in the team all-around. I'm like, well, if I was trying to bubble myself, that really pissed me off. And after the all-around, I guess, when the United States women were standing on the podium, I guess Gabby Douglas, which, if you remember, back in London, there was much to do about her, quote-unquote, nappy hair. Well, I guess Gabby Douglas didn't put her hand over her heart during the national anthem. And all of a sudden, there was this giant shitstorm. Gabby Douglas, look, she's got an attitude. Gabby Douglas, so disrespectful. She should have her medals stripped right away. Because the villagers, their torches and their pitchforks hadn't been used in a while, and they wanted to make sure that they stayed in practice. And I'm just watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, number one, if we remember McKayla Maroney from the 2012 Olympics,
Yep.
She messed up in her floor program, and she got bronze. And she was on the podium with her arms crossed, giving the stink face because she's a competitor. And she
it turned into a meme.
Right. She became America's sweetheart. And it was a funny meme. She's a very pretty girl who is very risque now on Instagram. But she's a cute girl. It was a funny meme, and it was all over the place, and we all got to laugh about it. All of a sudden, Gabby Douglas, not giving a stink face, just doesn't have her hand over her heart. All of a sudden, disrespectful, strip her medals. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, because somebody posted this, and I just Googled National Anthem sporting event, and I found Carrie Underwood singing at one of the Super Bowls, and I watched it. And some people had their hands over their hearts, and others didn't. I mean, you go to a sporting event, and not all the athletes have their hands over their hearts, and nobody says anything about it.
No, but Mike, between McKayla Maroney and Gabby Douglas, one of those things is not like the other.
One won gold and one won bronze?
Nah.
One was a team event. The other one was individual?
No, although I'm sure one will be pointed out about how much she's an individual.
I'm stumped, Kyle.
Well, selfish, if you ask me.
What could it be? I am stumped.
Real showy.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. One's black.
One's got nappy hair and one doesn't?
Oh, you could say that.
Yeah. It's just, come on, people. I don't know.
It's so blatant sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, they might as well just come out and say it.
And so, you know what, though? I think some people don't realize that's what it is subconsciously.
It's so stupid. It really is. It's just, again, just more people just showing their true colors and not really realizing it.
But it's so weird because, everyone was all excited for that Biles girl to win. I haven't been paying close attention to the Olympics, so I don't know the names. But there was the first black swimmer who medaled, and everyone was excited about that. But for some reason,
black shot putter as well.
Yeah, and people are celebrating this, and maybe they're celebrating this to show that they're not criticizing Gabby Douglas out of race. But I don't know. I feel so bad for the girl because your whole life you're training for something, and you achieve the goal, and twice people find something very nitpicky to shit on you about.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned other athletes and how many times, also there's other ways. They're not in the military. It doesn't have to be a salute.
Right.
It doesn't have to be hand over your heart. There are other ways. Sometimes I don't even put my hand over my heart. Not that I'm an Olympic athlete, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Sometimes I just bow my head or
right.
fold my hands and bow my head. I've just done that before.
She was facing the flag. I don't know. It's just, and sometimes, Kyle, I think people, if they're not pissed off about something, they get bored. And I bet you a lot of the people who are pissed off about Gabby Douglas are a lot of the same people voting Trump because people are too sensitive. They need to stop being offended.
That's such a great point.
Yeah.
But that's really what it is. It is. It's like the hypocrisy, because it's true. A lot of these people who are all about, people are too sensitive. People are always upset about something. People are always getting pissed off. But somebody doesn't put their hand on their heart.
Right. All of a sudden, yeah.
Yeah, she part of the Black Panthers. And, unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the Olympians right now. I'm a little tired.
Yeah, the
it's
guys
been a long day.
They turned their back, right, out of protest.
And they also raised their hands with black gloves
that's
on.
Right.
Yeah, I know. This has happened before.
Right.
I can't say it's happened before where you have seen actual forms of protest during the national anthem at the Olympics. I don't think that was that. Maybe she was tired.
Yeah, I don't
know. How about that?
I don't. You know what?
Maybe she wasn't even consciously thinking that it was offensive.
Look, you just won a gold medal, okay? Your brain is probably all over the place. You're probably not processing. Give the kid a break. And you know what? Maybe I'm more apt to give her a break because I thought the nappy hair controversy was such horseshit. But I don't know. People, find another piñata, okay?
Yeah, and to kind of cut away from the race angle of this for a second, you know what it's akin to was the oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name. Michigan State's quarterback.
How recently?
This past season.
Connor Cook.
Yeah. It's I told you guys I'm tired.
Yeah.
Connor Cook this year. When accepting the Big Ten trophy from Archie Griffin.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. Oh, he didn't accept the trophy the right way.
Right.
It's stuff like this. These are kids.
Right.
And like I said, do I feel like race was definitely an angle, like especially when you juxtapose it to McKayla Maroney and how, she's got this glare on her face the entire time during the national anthem. Yes, I do. But what I'm saying is, like, when you look at it versus Connor Cook, in how people were upset about that, too. It's you can't gauge a young athlete's reaction in an emotional moment after they just put their body through incredible strain and exhaustion.
To me,
how they're going to react. You can't gauge it.
Right. To me, those are brain farts or something that just slips your mind,
there have been so many moments in my life where I have, and these are athletes doing it on an elite level, and I'm just thinking to myself as my own personal examples, at high school levels, at rec league levels, at beer league levels, youth league levels, whatever the hell it is, where I've exerted myself as far as I can, and after the game or whatever, am I thinking about what my reaction is to something? I can't even put a sentence together. These poor kids at, I don't know, how old is Gabby Douglas? 16, 17, 18, something like that?
Gymnasts range from like 11 to 40. I don't know. But she's a kid.
But she's a kid. Connor Cook is a kid. All these athletes in the Olympics, most of them anyway, are kids, and you they're done exerting themselves at the highest level with the entire world or the entire country looking at them.
After a lifetime of working up to that moment.
You're putting a camera on them and you're jamming a microphone in their face and you expect them to behave the way that you want them to. Sometimes they can't go by the script.
Right.
So
just kind
whether
of a freaking break.
I know, whether it be race or whether it be immaturity or whether it just be a brain cramp, which is probably them just being themselves in the moment, whatever it is.
Right.
Just cut them a break. Leave them alone.
Maybe they're just trying to hold it together emotionally.
Exactly. Yeah, how about that? I'd like to see you in a position like that, how you'd react. It's not fair. It's stupid.
All right, there's a couple things I really want to hit on before the show's over, so we'll take a quick break and turn the radio off on the internet.
Turn the radio off with Mike Parsons.
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
People hate my podcast.com.
It's sometime in the future. The ultimate challenge. Crossfire. Crossfire. You can count. Crossfire. Crossfire. You can count. Crossfire. 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 You'll get caught up in it.
They talk to a microphone because they're no good at talking to women.
You, me, bar, beers, buzzed, wings, shots, drunk, waitresses hot. Football, Cornell Hofstra, slaughter. Then quick nap at my place and we hit the tin sound.
Turn the radio off.
I love giving my kids fun, healthy treats.
This segment is brought to you by whatever autoplay video this is. I hate technology. It's turn the radio off. So I have to say, Kyle, of all the places that I thought were tinderboxes just waiting to erupt in a riot after another police shooting, Milwaukee would probably... You probably would have given me 100 guesses, and I would not have guessed Milwaukee.
I actually would have.
Really?
Well, Milwaukee doesn't have... Well, it doesn't have a well-publicized history. If you listen to This American Life on NPR, they did a story. They did an entire hour dedicated to Milwaukee a couple years ago.
Really?
And how Milwaukee actually has one of the most racially divisive
police forces.
Well, racially divisive, yeah, and also racially slanted incarceration rates as well. I mean, racially disproportionate. That's the word I was looking for. Racially disproportionate incarceration rates and arrest rates, and also ticketing rates, too. Yeah. I mean, basically, if you're black, there's a significantly higher chance that you'll have an encounter with the police in Milwaukee, despite having a black police chief. But their police chief spoke at the Republican National Convention,
right? And he's been he's been on Fox News for a while. He's been speaking out against protesters, looters and rioters since the Ferguson thing. Which, on the surface, speaking out against looters and rioters, that makes sense. And as far as I know, the shooting of is it Sylville Smith? From all accounts, this particular shooting, and we always talk about when these shootings happened. All you can look at is the situation itself. I don't want to hear about his previous arrest record. I don't want to hear about anything else other than, was he a threat to the police at the time of the shooting? And it sounds like this, before seeing the dash cam video, that this particular incident, he had a loaded gun. The police were telling him to drop it, and he didn't. They shot him and killed him. And, of course, what a lot of outside people are doing is they're looking at the protests, the riots that have erupted afterwards, thinking that it has to do with just this particular incident, which it was probably, like you said, Kyle, there were a lot of problems to begin with, and that this, whether the shooting was justified or not, just sort of kind of was that final spark that kind of ignited it.
It's been brewing. It has. It's been brewing for a while. And
now it's a shame that, this, if this really was the police officer protecting himself, that this was the thing that did it. But like we said, it probably, if this happened in a vacuum, this probably wouldn't have touched off the reaction. But it didn't happen in a vacuum.
No. And that's the difference here. And the whole notion that this is just, and it's kind of like, I guess I'll put it to you this way. You're a kid, you're growing up in the Metro Detroit area, in the suburbs, and I don't know what your upbringing was, Mike. I'm not going to ask you to put you or your parents on the spot.
It's probably similar. Well, okay.
Well,
I was going to say similar to yours, but...
Well, I mean, of what the view or what opinion or what perspective you were given of the riots as a child, or what you were taught about the riots as a child.
It didn't come up with my parents much.
Well, it came up with my parents and my grandparents and my family a lot because
they were involved.
My grandfather was a police chief, fire chief during the riots.
So he was busy.
He was directly involved. I mean, he worked for a week straight during the riots, and, my grandma made sandwiches, and my dad and a couple of my aunts would deliver it to them, the National Guardsmen, while they were busy turning hoses and shooting and beating up protesters and rioters. Okay? So, I mean, that is what it is. Now, some of them had what they believed to be good intentions. Some of them were purely inflicting hate and anger and carrying out ill will on people who were confused and sad and scared and felt like they had nothing left to lose. So that's why they were behaving in such a way. But the perspective that I was always given was that these were people who were hateful. They hated white people. It wasn't that they hated white people because they were constantly being oppressed. It wasn't that they hated white people because of an illegal blind pig raid, which started the riots in 1967. It wasn't that they hated white people because of constant oppression and police brutality and illegal searches and all that, and systemic oppression and racism. They hated white people for no reason. They hated white people because of jealousy and envy, and just because they were different. White people were the good ones. The black people were the evil ones who had hate in their heart and were shifty and just by nature were evil and wrong. And they were trying to rise up to take power from white people, and white people had no choice but to turn hoses and dogs on them and shoot them and put them back in their place. That was the perspective I was given. Black people were given Detroit by the white people, and then black people destroyed what white people gave them. That's what perspective I was given on the riots.
You know, it's so funny.
As a child. And a lot of other suburban white kids, by the way.
It's so funny because the more you learn about history, the more you realize that stuff that's happening today is nothing new. And it's funny you bring that up because, look, I can't make sense of this, okay? I can't tell you what's going on in the minds of the police officers. I can't tell you what's going on in the mind of the victim or the person who was shot. We don't know if they're a victim or a suspect yet. I can't tell you what's going on in the mind of the protesters. But what I've been seeing, and this has been, stuff like this has been posted by WorldNet Daily. I saw a link from Hannity.com, a FoxNews.com link that says that protesters in Milwaukee are, quote-unquote, hunting white people.
No. Sounds a lot like what I just told you that my parents and grandparents told me, right?
And you know what? That was the point I was going to bring up, but you saying that was so perfect. Oh, and of course, Drudge. And, and it says, videos show protesters going after people just because they're white. Okay, number one, it's one video of a couple of idiots that are going after people, quote-unquote, because they're white.
There's a possibility that might be true, but it's probably isolated, I'm sure.
Exactly. And what they're doing, Kyle, is they're blowing it up. They're blowing it up, and I don't know if they're blowing it up because they have a racial agenda. I don't know if they're doing it for fear clicks, but what they're trying to do is scare white people into thinking that all of a sudden black people are hunting white people. And I'm like, you know what? This is some real birth of the nation shit going on, okay? And the people who are reposting it, they're genuinely scared. And I don't actually blame the people who are reposting it. I'm blaming these outlets that are putting this out there knowing that it's going to freak people out and going to get them to repost it, and they're putting out this misinformation that you got a pack of black protesters going around Milwaukee hunting white people.
Well, it's the whole agenda to turn Black Lives Matter into a terrorist group.
And what I'm not going to do, Kyle, is I'm not going to fall for it, okay? I know that there's racial problems in this country, right? And I'm not going to let spin doctors like this, propagandists like this, make me afraid of people who look different than me. Because you know what that's not going to solve anything. That's going to have the opposite effect. It's going to make things worse. And I just think it's so irresponsible. Look, the news has to report the news, okay? The news has to report what happens. This isn't news. These are people with an agenda. These are people with evil intentions.
Yeah,
and there's a big controversy going on right now that Twitter is filtering certain things out of their newsfeed. Good. Filter this shit out because it's garbage and it's dangerous. And for these people who have taken the word patriotic hijacked it and bastardized it. The most patriotic thing to do is to point this shit out and say, look, the video's there, okay? There's people, there is a small group of people, quote-unquote, hunting white people.
And I'm sure that that was probably the context, and this has happened before.
Well, right.
But that doesn't mean
let me
that
give you I'm sorry, Kat. Just let me give you an example. I'm still on the top subject, okay? I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is, this one guy. Okay, it seems like there's people who just kind of start paying attention to the news that they'll believe all this stuff. They'll believe that the media is not telling you something. If Drudge tells you the media is not telling you something, okay, and he posted it, and I said, dude, take these with a grain of salt. Okay, these websites, they traffic in anger, hate, and fear. Okay, and I said, look, I've only seen one video. It's a small group of people doing this. I have a feeling this is way overblown. Next thing, a guy underneath it, a white guy. As a white guy who lives a block away from where this is happening, I can tell you this story is overblown. Thank you for that. Thank you. I wish you had the outlet the size of Fox News because it's evil and it's dangerous and it makes me sick.
But I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I remember during and if you recall, there's always that famous footage during the LA riots of that one truck driver, one white truck driver who got pulled out by a couple black people and just had his head bashed in, and he was helpless. And I'm sure he was targeted in that moment because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was white. And that was awful. That was unfortunate. But I'm sure that was one isolated incident stacked up.
Shown over and over on the news.
Yes, and stacked up against a lot of other shit that happened to be going on at the time. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it justified. But what I'm saying is this, whatever may have happened in Milwaukee, I'm sure that was an isolated incident. There was that case in Detroit, 3-4 years ago, where that one, you remember his name?
Tell me, give me more details here.
Or that one
older
white guy who was driving through the east side of Detroit, got pulled out of his truck and got stomped down by...
He accidentally hit a kid.
Yeah.
He accidentally hit a kid. He got out to make sure that the kid was okay.
A lot of people, and then he ended up getting jumped by 10 guys, and that older black woman jumped out to protect him.
Right, the heroic nurse came.
Right. I mean, that was believed to be racially motivated. It's there, sure.
Which maybe it was, but that doesn't mean that every black person in the inner city is looking for a white person to knockout game.
Exactly. The knockout game. That was another rumor, too. And then there was the whole other thing where people tried to tie in Black Lives Matter to this whole burn a flag on 9/11 BS, or burn a flag on the 4th of July BS. I've heard so much of this stuff that just isn't. It's either isolated or it's small, far radicalized groups that is just BS. You got to really watch out for it. Like I said, I mean, there are groups of people out there that are trying as hard as they can to make Black Lives Matter seem dangerous, to make Black Lives Matter seem like they're a radicalized group, and they're not. They are just a group that want to see black people achieve equal treatment. That wants to see black people achieve the same, not the same sort of disparities that we're seeing right now in the justice system.
Well, here's the problem with Black Lives Matter. It's the same problem that Occupy Wall Street had. They don't have, it doesn't seem like they have any centralized organization.
It's a great point.
So anyone could go out and do anything in the name of their cause, right? Anyone could go out and burn down the building and scream Black Lives Matter. Then all of a sudden, oh, see, all Black Lives Matters are thugs and rioters. No, not all police officers. That was an isolated incident. But this one black guy is indicative of all Black Lives Matter. Here's my question, Kyle. Whose job is it to bring some sanity and some rational thought? It's nobody. It's all about page views. It's all about clicks. And it's gotten out of control. And I don't necessarily think things in the country have gone out of control, but the way that we present the news and spin things has gotten out of control. There's no one out there. There's no one out there calming things down. There's no one out there giving you unbiased reporting and giving you both sides.
No, that's true. That really doesn't exist anymore. I think the closest thing to it is NPR. I still stand by that. A lot of people believe that NPR is too far tilted to the left, but I still stand by it that public media outlets, and even to a slight lesser extent, the classic network outlets, I think those, PBS, NPR, I think as long as you stay away from the cable news outlets.
Right.
But the problem is that what gets the most news coverage?
Exactly.
The cable news outlets.
Yep.
I think if you go back to the classic news network outlets, or if you go to the public news outlets, I still think those are your best bet, but nobody watches them anymore. No one believes in them anymore. And it's an awful phenomenon.
Because their
moth
anchor
to the flame.
Their anchors aren't as hot as the chicks on Fox News.
Ooh.
Let's take
Roger Ailes.
Yeah. Things worked out great for that guy. I guess legend has it that he's now consulting Trump on his campaign. 2 peas in I'm going to say the F word, the fucking pod. Let's take a quick break because we said the T word. I don't want to talk about him. Turn the radio off on the internet.
Turn the radio off with Machine Gun Mike Parsons.
And guess what? Life isn't fair. You don't always get what you want.
And Kyle Avocado Bauer.
Oh, zombie preparedness kit. I'm a zombie. Lols, lols, lols.
We'll be back in seconds. Turn the radio off. With more Turn the radio off. On the internet.
What exactly is it that makes a Ford Escort GT so much fun? Well, let's start with its powerful 16-valve dual overhead cam engine. It's a blast. A scream. It really cuts. Then there's Escort GT's great looks. The kind that'll turn more heads than a screwdriver. Speaking of turns, that's where Escort GT's nimble sport suspension comes in. We're talking road hugging. So ask yourself, isn't it time for a little fun? Yes! And have you driven a Ford lately?
Your non-stop alt-talk alternative for 1 hour a week. Turn the radio off. Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com.
All right, well, so I will give a shout-out to I guess a social commentator out there that, I think I finally have found someone, Kyle, to bring some temperament and some sanity and some rational thought to our out-of-control news cycle. It's really the only social commentary that I read. It's the old Stone Cold Facebook group where it's somebody parroting Stone Cold Steve Austin with a focus on social justice, little atheism, and some nihilism. And after every rant that's spot on, it always ends with, and that's the bottom line. Like recently in the news, for some reason, people got sick of being upset about Gabby Douglas, so there's been this big debate about pineapple on pizza. Like who gives a shit? If you like pineapple, put it on your pizza. If not, don't, and move on with your life. Well, old Stone Cold, in all caps, has weighed in on the situation, Kyle. And to me, if there's a tiebreaker in our culture, the old Stone Cold Facebook page is the tiebreaker. It says, Austin 316 says, I don't give a fuck what you put on your pizza. We're all eating trash, and we're all going to die. And that's the bottom line. That's true.
It's a great point.
So if you want to eat pineapple on your pizza, do it. If not, who gives a shit?
Can I just interject really quick?
Yes, please do.
Can we please stop arguing over food?
Right.
With the hot dog, whether or not hot dog is a sandwich or pineapple on pizza, please?
Right.
God, this is getting so annoying. Why is this a thing?
Well, I mean, can people
just let other people eat and
right.
enjoy themselves and be happy?
I mean, people are way too concerned with what other people are doing.
Yeah, that's one thing. But especially the eating.
Right.
People are hungry, man. Just let them eat.
Your opinion on something arbitrary isn't the same as mine.
And don't even get me started.
Man card revoked.
Don't even get me started with the anti-ketchup people either. Oh, those people.
Now this one here, Kyle. We talked at length about just how stupid the debate over the new Ghostbusters has become.
Yeah.
It's like, see the movie or don't, okay? Don't go because you're thinking you're making a big feminist stand, and don't refrain from seeing it because it's quote-unquote ruining your childhood.
And subsequently, the Suicide Squad movie became some political stance, too.
Right.
Like, somehow you're a misogynist if you go see it. Like, I don't even know how or where or why that started.
You know what?
Like, I guess because, what's her name?
Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn, because Harley Quinn isn't a lesbian. It's a misogynist movie. Like, I've been hearing arguments, like, for some reason, Harley Quinn's supposed to be a lesbian, but she's not. So because of that, it's a misogynist film. And if you see it, you're a misogynist. I read a think piece on Slate about it.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Yeah.
And I bet you there was a Deadspin that said, Harley Quinn, go fuck yourself. Because Deadspin always has to take someone popular and tell them that they suck for the hot take machine.
I don't think that happened, but yeah, probably I just didn't see it.
Okay, so something along those lines. They did one for Steph Curry and every other beloved figure.
There are contrarians over there.
This is what this is what goes into my decision making whether I'm going to go see a movie or not. Do I think it looks good, or do I not think it looks good? So apply that, and your decision making will be a lot easier.
I like that idea.
August 3rd. In quotes, this page used to be funny. But now, I'll read it, actually. This page used to be funny, but now it's just posting a bunch of liberal political bullshit. Newsflash, you skinny piece of shit. Old Stone Cold's always been about whooping ass, drinking beer, and raising hell in the name of social justice since he logged on to Facebook. And if you got a problem with that, I don't know, maybe you could post a string you run on paragraph about the new Ghostbusters movie on YouTube. Or maybe you could step in the ring with the Texas rattlesnake and get a mud hole stomped straight through your mouth breathing ass. And that's the bottom line. So, you know what? The Old Stone Cold Facebook page is a breath of fresh air. It's a life preserver in the ocean of hyperbole and angry villager politics that we've been seeing over the past year.
Oh, that's nice. You need some relief somewhere.
Okay. And with that, we're out of time, Kyle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, I decided to cut our normal weekly discussion on race a little short so I can get in my old Stone Cold takes.
Oh, well, that was nice. I enjoyed Old Stone Cold.
Yeah. I think you'd really enjoy it if you follow them. Okay, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening, Paul. Bye.